Now, I don't know how many of you are surprised to see me up here this morning, but I don't think anyone is as surprised as me. Growing up as a priest kid, pretty much my entire life, my introverted heart has been quite happy with my unofficial assigned seat in the back pews of the church. And when I came to Youth Sunday for the first time and heard about the tradition of singers giving the sermons, I thought to myself, no way am I ever doing that. I'm an introvert by heart, and I try as hard as I can to stray away from any form of unnecessary public speaking. But a year ago, when I saw Susie and Susanna giving their sermons, something clicked in my brain, and I said to myself, oh, that's gonna be me, isn't it? And since then, I've silently been planning little bits and pieces of what I wanted to say, and it all came together when I read the gospel reading for this morning. Growing up as a PK, and maybe there are people who have grown up in the church that feel the same, there have been times when my faith journey feels less like a conscious choice that I'm making for myself than I would like it to. But when I can feel my faith journey starting to feel like a chore or a responsibility that it feels like I didn't ask for, I like to do some genuine reflection on the role of faith in my life. And every single time, I can feel it ground me. And it's through these various sessions of reflection that I came upon the statement that I would like to explore in the context of today's gospel reading. The statement is this: it's easy to believe something if your beliefs are never challenged. But there's a flaw with this concept. I want you to think about a moment where you could feel that your faith had changed for the better, and you could feel a certain strength and security in your relationship with God. Now, I'm sure that there are exceptions, but chances are those moments didn't come from life being easy. Chances are there have been moments where your faith has felt challenging, confusing even. And those moments are scary, or at the very least, uncomfortable. But in my only 18 years of living, I have found that as crazy scary as those moments are, they have been when my faith have grown the most. Now, I know it's going to be hard for me to tell stories that y'all haven't already heard before, but stick with me. As many of you know, my family and I moved almost 900 miles all the way from San Antonio, right in the middle of my freshman year. And as any moody 15-year-old would be in the same situation, I was mad. I was mad at my parents, of course, but even more so, I was mad at God. The only reason my family had ever moved was because God had directly called us, more specifically my dad, somewhere. First it was to seminary in Sewanee, then it was to the Church of Nativity in Huntsville, and then all the way out to St. Paul's in San Antonio. And after almost 9 amazing years of me growing up there, we were called yet again back to Homewood, here to All Saints. And I was mad. I had absolutely no control or say over the situation whatsoever, and I couldn't for the life of me understand why God had decided that year of all years to seemingly drag me away from the people I loved and the place that I had come to call home. It felt pointed and it felt hurtful, and I was mad at God. I felt like I had lost something dear to me, much as I imagine, like the disciples felt after Jesus' crucifixion. And if I had to guess, it probably felt impossible for them to look for anything good. One thing I've noticed is that we as humans are easily blinded when we come upon hard times, making it really easy for us to focus on the bad and making the endeavor to search for the good things seem almost impossible. And when I moved here 3 years ago, that's what I was stuck in. And I often sat wondering how God could expect me to flourish so far away from the friends that I loved and the place that I had grown up in. I was so stuck in this that it took me over 3 years of perspective to realize that God had shown his hand as soon as my plane landed there. As soon as I landed there, I went out to brunch with my family and my grandparents, not realizing how lucky I would be to now live so close to them as my grandmother passed away only 2 years later. And the day after that, I had my first Sunday at All Saints, not realizing I would meet two very special people, Sadie and Ruby, who would go on to be some of my closest friends and help me establish my life here in Homewood. The day after that, my dad gave me one of his old sweatshirts, a bright yellow vintage Emery sweatshirt, and I wore it almost every day, not realizing that it would set me on the path to apply there 2.5 years later, something that would have never come across my radar had I stayed in Texas, and commit there almost 3 years later. Although it took me a long time to gain that perspective and feel established and like I truly belonged here, I can see now that the life that I know and love and the person I've become, God started that process as soon as I got here. I was just too blind to see it yet. I imagine Thomas fell victim to that same blindness too. He had seen with his own eyes Jesus dying that day on the cross. And he, along with the rest of the disciples, were devastated. How could he believe any good in life when someone he knew to be innocent and truly good was falsely accused and died because of it? And I'm sure you all know, as well as I do, that 3 days is not long enough to gain that perspective you need to see past the devastation. No wonder he didn't believe his friends when they told him Jesus was indeed alive. That blindness that comes with loss shakes your beliefs. And Thomas's beliefs were certainly shaken, and so he needed to see Jesus, not because he was a poor disciple, but because he needed something to shake him out of his blindness. His beliefs had been challenged, and so it wasn't quite as easy to believe. Of course it's easy to believe when joy is right in front of your face, witnessing God's miracles, whether it be at camp with friends, EYC, or even here on Youth Sunday. But I have found that my faith has been stronger because of the temporary blindness that I felt. And I can see God's hand in my life even better than before. Even though the disciples felt that same blindness, it was that temporary loss that allowed them to spread God's word so fervently even when Jesus was no longer with them physically. Our questions make our faith stronger, no matter how scary they are or how lost they make you feel. So let me end with this. Don't be afraid when your faith is uncertain. In fact, lean into it. Ask those questions, face those challenges, and look for the good. It takes time, probably more than you would like, but I assure you, God will show his hand.
Hey y'all, that's a really rough act to follow because she did so good. My name is Kylie Peerson, and I've been going to church here at All Saints before I could remember. My earliest memory from here is of me sitting in the choir stalls back there with my grandparents as a little kid, and sorry, I'm just really excited to be here. But and I would always get super excited right after church because it was over, and that meant that I could go upstairs in the choir room and steal all the mints. And I'm really sorry to whoever was buying those because I stole it all from you. That's my bad. Sorry. Okay. When I got older, I started to sing with the youth choir, which helped me realize how important music is. To me, it had also helped me find that thin space where I feel closest to God. Now that I'm old enough, I get to sing with the adult choir with my grandfather and the people that helped raise me. The other day, actually a couple months ago, I was back there singing with the adult choir, and I found this little fan from when I was probably 4 or 5, and I'd written my name all over it. And I thought that was really cute because I was 4, and I was writing, claiming my space, and I still sing there with them to this day. I've always wanted to have the opportunity to thank this church and the people in it because they make this place so special. All Saints is just a little different from other churches. I've never been to a church as welcoming and as loving. You'll understand what the meaning is when people say the people make the place. Once you've come here, you'll understand that. What I love the most about All Saints is the effort and care that goes into nurturing the youth here, because at a very early age, this church shaped me into who I am, showed me what a firm foundation of faith looks like, and gave me a relationship with God. Hold up, Grace. There's a back. That's my bad. there's not. Yes, there is. Earlier, I mentioned when I discovered what thin space was through music while here at church. The best way I can describe what thin space is like is this overwhelming emotion where you know that God is near and He is listening. A time where I felt this that has really stuck to me over the years was back around the summer of 2019, right before I started 7th grade. Before this time, I didn't have that close relationship with God that everyone else seemed to have. I did all the things everyone else was doing, praying before meals, going to church on Sundays, and I tried reading the Bible, and I don't like to read, so that didn't go very well for me. But doing all this stuff didn't help find what I was looking for until I went to Camp McDowell that summer. I always grew up going there when I was little with my grandparents for the adult choir, and we would go there on the weekends, so I always loved going there. And then when I first went there again in 7th grade to go back in and be with all my friends, I met Grace Turner. I didn't know at the time, but my cabin's counselor in training, Grace Turner, would be my youth leader here at All Saints today, which is already a blessing in itself. But anyways, enough about Grace. The last night of camp, before we're leaving, it's a big deal, and you're all super sad, and you're oh, I'm gonna miss you, but everyone knows you're gonna see each other next summer, but you're still upset. These are all your best friends, and you've become super close with them over the matter of maybe 8 or 9 days. So we decided to have this big thing, and the last night of camp, before we all went home, our counselor and our CIT took the whole cabin on a midnight hike to the bridge over Clear Creek. If you know what Clear Creek is, you know it's not clear, so sorry. We were all freezing and couldn't see anything, and all of us were complaining until we got to the bridge and sat down. Everyone slowly got quieter, and we were all just staring at the stars above us because you can see them so clearly at camp. Grace pulled out her guitar, and we all sang along to the camp songs and held on tight to each other because it was so cold, but also because we knew this moment was very special. During that moment, time slowed down. The boundary between heaven and earth felt almost permeable, and I could feel God's presence more than I ever have before. I always thought that God's presence was supposed to be a sign to an answered prayer or a bird, and someone tells you, oh, that's your sign from God. But I didn't have that feeling. I felt more like a guiding hand on my shoulder, and I felt that God answered my prayers, and He knew and He listened. Finding your thin space isn't very easy to find. For me, it took a really long time, and I struggled a lot in my faith, a lot like Thomas. But I found my thin space thanks to this church and the people in it, and they have helped me flourish and grow into the person I am, and I will forever be thankful to this community and this place. I want to finish this off with a little prayer from Camp McDowell that's really near and dear to me. Life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us. So be quick to love and make haste to be kind. And the blessing of God who loves you be with you this day and always. Amen.
Hello, All Saints and friends. Good morning. My name is Sadie Busbee, and I'm a senior at Homewood High School. And I'm so excited to be up here. All Saints has been my home for 10 years, and during this time, I've acolyted, read as a lector, participated regularly in Atrium, been a tribal member and co-leader at Vacation Bible School, and enjoyed EYC, which is Episcopal Youth Community, and YLT, Youth Leadership Team, journeyed to Camp McDowell for parish retreats and camp time, and spent countless hours helping my mom prep for Christmas pageants and VBS. And I'm so thankful for these experiences. Thank you. So Youth Sunday of my senior year is something I've looked forward to for years, and I've heard a lot of senior sermons, so hopefully mine's okay. So in the gospel reading for today, we heard about Thomas and his doubting of Jesus' resurrection. What stood out to me is how Jesus waited a week to reappear and reveal to Thomas that the disciples spoke the truth about his resurrection. I think about what Thomas must have felt during that time. Thomas lived in doubt and uncertainty before Jesus appeared to him and put his mind at ease. I think this relates to life because sometimes we have to deal with uncertainty before everything becomes clear. There are times when we feel confused about choices we have and circumstances that we have no control over before we realize the truth before us. God's time is more important than our time. I've done multiple sports, with soccer being my main sport for as long as I can remember. My mom was my coach for a long time, and the sport brought me some of my closest friends and favorite memories. I always assumed I'd play in college, and I had a general idea of where I wanted to go. I'm sure most of you have seen me in my knee braces, but I dealt with 2 serious knee injuries. After tearing both my ACLs, one my freshman year, one my junior year, there was so much uncertainty. I struggled with the recovery and had a lot of moments where I doubted if I would get better and if I would get back to a level of competition I was happy with. Tearing my ACLs felt like a door shutting to a future of soccer that I felt pretty certain about. But through track, God gave me clarity. I realized there were other opportunities for me in that sport, and my injuries were a way of God steering me towards throwing. Now, I didn't come to that conclusion happily. It's been a hard thing for me to come to terms with, but it's a really positive thing. Next year, I'm going to be a Division I collegiate athlete at Wofford College, where I'll be on the track team, throwing discus, javelin, and shot put. And I'm so excited. Knowing that God will leave us in uncertainty can be difficult in times of hardship and stress. But we have to remember that He will reveal His plan. Through my senior year, there's been a lot of uncertainty about a lot of things, and trusting God to lead me in the right direction has been something that's given me relief. When I was in level 2 atrium, I thought I needed a favorite Bible verse. I thought it went along with getting older. You age and you get a favorite Bible verse. So one Sunday, I was flipping randomly through the Bible, and I landed on Isaiah 43:2. And when I was writing this, I thought of that verse. It states, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, nor will the flame set you ablaze." It relates because though there are hard times and doubtful times and stressful moments, God is with us, always. And if we trust His plan and His timeline, we'll survive and hopefully thrive. Jesus says 3 times to His disciples, "Peace be with you," when He first returned after the crucifixion. I know soon we'll all turn to each other and say the same thing. And maybe you've never really thought about those words and the weight they hold in this moment in the gospel. It's a wonderful message of hope and relief and intention. We share these words with our neighbors to put goodness into their day and remind them that Jesus and Remind them that Jesus and peace walk alongside them, and God has a plan for all of us. I'm not going to cry. God's got everything under control. And if we can carry peace in our hearts and share it with the people around us, we'll be okay. Thank you.
May I speak to you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Peace be with you. I've experienced this expression at every single service I have attended within the Episcopal Church, an exchange I have made with my family members and those sitting in the pews around me, but it took me a long time to fully appreciate its meaning and relativity in my life. When I was in elementary school, I went through a massive hippie phase. Everything was about peace signs, tie-dye, and funky patterns. I took it so far that instead of being a normal hippie for Halloween, I was queen of the peace signs. I still don't know what that even means, but I remember being so excited to wear the handmade dress my grandmother had sewn for me with my pink peace sign glasses and teal hair extensions. So when I heard this exchange at church, I always thought I was just telling everyone to have peace, throwing up the occasional peace sign as I engaged with those around me. As I grew older and became more mature in my faith, I began to wonder what this truly meant in my life, this idea of peace. The true meaning of this exchange of peace in the Episcopal Church is a sign of reconciliation, love, and renewed relationships within our Christian community. It is easier said than understood, however, and it can take a lot to appreciate this in its entirety during the quick exchange during a service. A piece of scripture from the gospel readings today that stands out to me is, "Blessed are those who have not yet seen and yet have come to believe." And I think that this is the best way that I have come to understand the peace of God in my life. The concept of peace is something that can be hard to understand and achieve, much like other concepts within the church that are not concrete. I have struggled on and off in my life with grasping the idea of faith, that it is something you cannot physically see, but something you put your entire trust into and blindly follow. Not knowing exactly what faith looks like or feels like can be a very uncomfortable feeling, and one that I was held back by for a long time. My sophomore year of high school was when I was struggling with my faith the most. I did not feel connected spiritually and struggled with the idea that faith was something we cannot physically see. It was hard for me to feel at peace with myself and my faith when I had no idea what heavenly peace felt like, despite the church being there as an example for me every Sunday. The summer after my sophomore year, I had the opportunity to serve the Episcopal Diocese and wonderful kids of Greensboro Elementary School through volunteering at Sawyerville Day Camp. This was the first time in my life I truly saw what God's peace looked and felt like, and got to see firsthand the experience of those who have not yet seen faith and yet have come to believe. For an entire week, I was surrounded by people who were all there to share the love of God with the campers and the staff, no matter how old we were, the color of our skin, or where we came from. I experienced God's peace through times of reflection with fellow staff members I met and grew close with, saw children's faces light up when they jumped in the pool for the first time without their noodles, and felt an overwhelming sense of peace every time I got a hug from one of the precious campers. I could sense what God's goal was for us in experiencing peace and sharing that with others. For me, reaching that state of heavenly peace is my thin space, something permeable between heaven and earth. I no longer felt blind in my faith. I could see exactly what it meant to feel and share God's peace, and was able to find that peace within myself to continue sharing with others. I think one of the most amazing parts about faith is that everyone's experience with finding peace is different and can happen in different ways. For some people, it might be partaking in other spiritual retreats like Happening or Cursillo. It might be going on a sunrise hike with a pet. It might even just be simply reading a book in bed on a rainy day. But no matter what it takes to get there, I take great comfort in the fact that I know the church is always a permanent place where we get to come experience this peace together every Sunday. And it is such a blessing to have somewhere where we can celebrate all of our different interpretations of peace. Inner peace achieved through faith is such a gift in a world that is far from peaceful. It is a peace that surpasses all understanding. But if we have peace within us, the love of God can be exerted around us. God serves as an example of what peace looks like, but we have the ability to experience, interpret, and share it in different ways. As I continue to expand on this idea of peace, I know that my church family at All Saints will always be here to support me and every other member of the congregation in their spiritual journey. It is such a blessing that we have the opportunity to get to discuss with others what our own experience with peace has been, and be in a place where we feel supported to talk about the difficulties we sometimes face within our faith. Church has taught me to take comfort in the uncomfortable, to not doubt but believe in the peace and love of God. Since finding my own interpretation of peace, I now know how to continue having faith, not only spiritually, but in myself, my family, my friends, and the situations around me. While I am fearful of entering a new stage of life in just a few months, 8 hours away, I take great comfort in knowing that the peace of God will be with me permanently. My wish for everyone here today is that you can take comfort in the fact that we find peace through God, and help those who do not yet believe come to believe. I would like to end today with a version of St. Teresa's prayer from a book given to me by my grandmother. May today there be peace within. May you trust God that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. May you use those gifts that you have received and pass on that love that has been given to you. May you be content knowing that you are a child of God. Let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, dance, praise, and love. It is there for each and every one of us. Peace be with you.